pages 212 to 213. So Biff's pals carry Marty away. They find a car sitting around with an incredibly convenient open trunk, so they dump Marty there. Inside the car is the drummer from the band, who got off early so he's smoking up. Gipe writes it in the way only a man who has read about drugs in the papers can.
Seated behind the wheel of the Cadillac, the young black man was enjoying a marijuana cigarette.
Gipe also knows what effects these marijuana cigarettes are rumored to have.
Halfway into the joint, he had grown sleepy and contented.
Car dude hears a noise and gets out. Reginald is his name, which is a name that survives from the first draft where the main musician was Reginald Washington instead of Marvin Berry. He confronts Skinhead and 3D. Those guys call him Spook, he calls them Peckerwood. The rest of the band show up. Biff's goons say they don't want to mess with no reefer addicts and run away. Marvin asks for the keys, and Reginald pats himself down and says,
"Can't find them."
Marty yells from the trunk that they're in the trunk, and Marvin is mad because that's the third time Reginald has left them suckers in the trunk. Ha ha, that's our Reginald. And we're back with George again. He's still in the bathroom, and Dixon actually did set up a series of 10-minute shifts to keep him in there, which is kind of impressive in a dickish way. But someone new has just walked into the bathroom. And let's get excited because it's Mr. Strickland. None of these added Strickland scenes are in the movies, but that's why we read novelizations, because sometimes there's more Strickland action in them, right?
To George McFly, the grating sound of tyrannical Gerald Strickland's voice was simultaneously welcome and infuriating. Having been kept prisoner in the High Valley High Gymnasium men's room.
And it's infuriating because
the perverse action of his tormentors did provide him with a built-in excuse not to carry out Marty's plan.
And now I know all of you are frantically starting to write a stoner comedy called High Valley High. So Strickland says he smells cigarette smoke, which I don't buy because I'm sure Strickland would know the difference between a marijuana cigarette smoke and a regular cigarette smoke, and know where he'd go easy on teens smoking up in the bathroom. Strickland would bust those teens back down to kindergarten so hard they'd wish they'd never stopped wearing diapers. So as this scene provides inconsistent characterization of the best character in the story, I am forced to declare it 100% non-canon. Sorry everybody, but I don't make the rules, I just enforce them. I'm kinda like Strickland himself. Pages 214 to 215. Strickland makes the unnamed teen throw out his cigarettes and lets him leave, so George steps out of the stall. Strickland asks him what's been going on. George says,
"Nothing, sir."
And Strickland busts out bull droppings again, which is nice. Then Strickland tells him he'd better get back to the dance and is a huge dick about it.
"The dance is just about over. You'd better get back to your..." "Never mind, I don't suppose you have a date."
Sick burns Gerald. George runs out, sees the lights are down for the last dance, and runs outside.
Although he doubted that Marty was still manhandling Lorraine in the parking lot, George decided to make a dutiful appearance and explain the reason for his delay.
And in another terrific example of slowing down the action for literally no reason, George
walks briskly
to where Marty should be, but he's not there. Then George realizes he's just in the wrong section of the parking lot, ha, and wanders over to the correct car. It's like Gipe wants to illustrate how not to write an action scene. Which is really convenient because if this book was good, this Tumblr would be super boring and would consist entirely of me saying, "Hey, here's another good scene." Listen, you guys should really just be reading the book. Let me get out of the way here. Here he's just dumb and socially awkward and cowardly and can't even remember where Marty parked. So yeah, George finally strolls up to the right car.
Through the windows he could see arms and even what he judged to be legs flailing. Lorraine was screaming as the male figure pressed his body against hers and groped wildly with his hands. "Holy cow," George muttered. "It looks like Marty is going all out."
George opens the door and we finally get the great
Hey you, get your damn hands off. Oh.
line, which dies in his throat as George sees it's actually Biff in the car. And Biff has that menacing line.
I think you got the wrong car, McFly.
And zap, we are suddenly inside George's head. George actually has a nice bit here, where he's shocked at what he's seeing and can't understand it.
Was Marty behind this? Was there a slim possibility Biff was in on it, too? Should he run?
It's nice because of course George doesn't know what's going on. He just met this Marty dude with the extreme interest in his life who came up with this stupid plan in the first place, and George has been beaten up and beaten down his entire life, so a weird betrayal like this would totally seem possible in that one crazy moment as he's staring at Biff and Lorraine. I give medium-sized props for this. But then George sees for the first time a flicker of fear in Biff's face, and concludes
had been caught in a potentially damaging situation that cried out for immediate action.
He's still thinking this when Biff says,
Just turn around, McFly, and walk away.
I love how this line was delivered in the movie, so calm, so menacing. That strength of delivery carries it in the book here for me too. Then we're back in George's head and he's thinking of Billy Stockhausen. Remember him? He's that friend he failed to stand up for before when George was little.
Since that moment, George had feared physical combat, had learned to anticipate it and avoid it.
Now that Gipe has reminded us of George's motivations, we're ready for the next page. Events happen, you guys.